The next thing we're going into is tensioning your machine. There are two different places where you're actually going to be working with tensions, and that is your main tension knob or down below in the bobbin tension, and we'll get back down to our bobbins in a minute. You also have two pre-tensioners on your machine. Basically, you're not going to be tensioning the pre-tensioners. Their job is to make sure that the thread doesn't twist and also to make sure that it doesn't break by the time it gets to the main tensioner. So each tensioning knob is going to apply a small bit of tension. The main tensioner is what keeps your top thread sewing at an even pace with the bobbin thread. Basically, when you're working with your top tensioners, turn it to the right to tighten it, to the left to loosen it. And you don't want to do a lot of tightening, screwing or unscrewing it. You're just going to be tightening it a little bit at a time. One little turn, you'll hear a click. One little turn, you'll hear a click, and then you go back the opposite way. So you're doing it a little at a time. Now we're actually going to tension our bobbin. The bobbin is located down on the bottom of the arm, so you just pull down on that little plastic cover and take your bobbin out using the little door. We're going to talk a little bit about how the bobbin goes into the bobbin case. Right now, it's facing you, and there's a little door here. This little door actually is what you use when you take the bobbin out of the rotary hook. There's a little pigtail, and that pigtail actually keeps the tension from coming undone while it's sewing. The thread goes alongside to the left, and it comes out from underneath a tensioning spring. There's also a little slit in the case, and then there's two screws. The larger recess screw is your adjustment screw. The smaller screw is what holds the tension spring onto the bobbin case, and you really don't want to be messing with that screw. The bobbin fits inside of the bobbin case, and at the top there's an opening so that you can check how much bobbin thread you have left. A bobbin will hold conservatively approximately 20,000 stitches. To take the bobbin out of the bobbin case, just turn it over and then just pull it right out. The next thing we're going to do is actually put the bobbin back into the bobbin case. So if you hold the bobbin case facing you with the opening towards you and that little opening at the top, the bobbin facing you, it's going to wind clockwise. So when you're looking at it, it should look like the number 9. You take the bobbin and put it right into the bobbin case. The thread should almost be at that little slit, and you're just going to pull it alongside, bring it up to the top of the spring, and pull it right into the spring. We're now ready to tension our bobbin. To start with, you'll need a screwdriver and you'll need a Sharpie. The Sharpie is a nice tool to use until you get used to tensioning your bobbin. Just put a little black dot on the thread at the top of the, put a little black dot where the thread is coming out of the bobbin case. This way you can see how much it drops. We recommend a drop of between 1 inch to 1.5 inches. Once you've done that, you're now ready to do the yo-yo test. Make sure you've left yourself a long piece of thread, then hold on to it, and all you're going to do is a little sharp jerk, and that will tell you whether your tension's good or not. Now when you look at it, depending on how much of a drop there is, if it's less than 1 inch, you probably will need to loosen it up. If it's more than 1.5 inches, you'll probably need to tighten it up. In this case, I would need to loosen it. So I take my screwdriver and go to the larger recess screw. With the cardboard facing my left, I'm going to loosen this up a little bit, so I'm going to turn it to the left. Then I'm going to remark it, and I'm going to redrop it. If the bobbin falls out of the bobbin case, don't worry about it, just leave it there. It's not going to impact how far it dropped. And as you can see, from the bobbin case to the second mark, it's perfect. So now I'm ready to put it into my machine, and I'm ready to run an H test. And the H test will tell me how much tensioning is on and how much tensioning is off. So all I'm going to do is put it back into the bobbin case, and I'm ready to do it through the pigtail. Once you've set your tension and your tension is good, you're now going to wind it around that little pigtail at the top of the bobbin case. So just bring it right between the cardboard and that spring and just wind it around twice. This is actually too much thread to leave on your bobbin because your machine will try to use it. So the best thing to do is to leave about 2 to 3 inches of thread. You can either cut it, or I'm just putting it underneath my pinky and pull it. And that usually leaves about the right amount of thread. To put your bobbin back into your machine, you bring your bobbin over to the bobbin case, holding it with the opening facing up, or that little pigtail facing up, and the little door facing you. Keep the thread in front of the bobbin, and I like to put my thumb on it. That keeps it from going behind the bobbin case or getting caught on anything. Insert it into the arm and push it until you hear that click. Once you hear the click, your bobbin's in there and you can close the door. Now at this point, we're ready to run our H test. We're going to load the hoop onto the machine. To load your H test in, it's a good idea to put it into your embroidery machine if it's not already there. If it's not there, please give us a call and we'll be more than happy to send it to you. You press your F1 to load it in from your machine's memory. The H test should be the very first thing that's in there, as well as a cap design that they sew on your machine. Once it's selected, and we know it's selected by the green bar above it, we press set. Since we're going to put it into, we're going to sew it, we're going to press the select F4 button, and that will select the design and put it up on your main screen. The next thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we put our settings in. We're pressing setting. We want to assign our needle colors. Now, the needle colors are, you're assigning one for every single needle that you have on your embroidery machine. Press F3 to reset. That will clear it out, and now you're ready to put in your colors. Every H test that you sew is going to have an H for every needle on your machine. It's a good idea not to put white on your machine. You won't see the bobbin and the top color differentiated from each other. So the first thing you do is assign all your colors. So we're going to assign colors 1 through 15. Now, once you've done that, you'll have colors 1 through 15. That's so that every H sews out in a different color, and you can tell if your tension's off on the back of the H once we've sewn it. You'll be able to tell whether the tension is good or it's not good. Once you've done that, you press F6, OK it, and then we're getting out of this menu, so we're just going to hit escape. The next thing we want to do is center the machine to needle 1. You press your 1 button, and that centers needle 1 to the center of the needle plate. The next thing we want to do is center the hoop under needle 1. And again, that's lining up needle 11 with the screw in the center on the left side of your hoop. Once you've centered your hoop and you've centered your machine to needle 1, we're going into F5, the ready button, and we're going to come down and do an exclude trace and press set. When it comes up, we're going to press F2 for frame, and we're going to watch the center. We're going to watch the laser in our hoop. We want to make sure that this laser stays within the confines of the hoop, and as long as it does, we're ready to sew. We hit escape to get out of this menu. We hit escape to get out of our ready menu. And we're ready. We're going to press the start button and it will start sewing. Let it sew until they're all sewn, and then take them out of the hoop and turn the H test over. We're going to use 3 examples from this H test so that you can see how the tension looks. The first H that we're looking at has very good tension. You'll notice that we have 1/3 top color, which is red, 1/3 bobbin color, which is white, and 1/3 top color. This is ideal tension, and this is what you're looking for. When you have an H test that has several different types of H's behind it, like example number 2, we have very little bobbin thread showing. If this shows on most of the H's, then you're going to need to retension your bobbin. If it only shows on a few H's, then you're going to tension the upper tension knob for that color. And in this case, you'll tighten it. Rerun the H test and then look at it again, and you'll continue this process until the H looks good. Our next example is the orange H, and we have too much bobbin thread showing. Again, if you have too much bobbin showing on most of the H's, retension your bobbin. If it's only showing on a couple of H's, then you'll go to the color that matches the H test, and you'll retension the upper tensioning knob until you get it correct. If you have too much bobbin showing, you're going to loosen the upper tensioner. Continue going until you have a really good H test, and then you should be sewing fine.